How is it going, all my ponies out there? I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, and I'm coming at you with another My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episode review. This time it's Season 9, Episode 10, titled Going to Seed. And words beyond words, it's an Applejack episode with everything going on with the school and the newer characters and all the other main six characters. It's just so interesting to finally have yet another Applejack episode. Just really interesting. I can't emphasize enough how much this took me off guard. But we see the Apple family getting ready for a special time of year, something called the Confluence, where all the apples in the orchard ripen, all at the same time. They all get to a harvesting point all around the same time, so the whole family will have to work at getting them all collected. And Applejack is really excited about it. She's just like, okay, we can do it. We got the whole family together, and we even have Granny Smith say that she called in someone to help out, and it's none other than Goldie Delicious, who, hasn't really been featured that too often in terms of the Apple family members. So this, I guess, felt like the perfect time to bring her in, especially in terms of the actual episode. As Applejack isn't too keen on having Goldie Delicious here, as she feels that Goldie won't be enough of a good help for them during the confluence. However, Goldie says that if they were to capture the Great Seed, they'd have more apples than they could know what to do with. Which, Applejack and Big Mac play off as an old, young fool's tale, kind of like Santa Claus and all that, a myth, a legend. But Goldie is adamant about saying that the Great Seedling is real. And, she describes it as this kind of almost like a forest spirit that goes from place to place, visits certain farms, and causes, their crops to grow bountifully all year long. And Apple Bloom is all too ready to capture the great seedling and help to bring a great harvest to their farm, much to the dismay of Applejack, who'd rather just get things done the old fashioned way. But Apple Bloom is all too ready to set up, and Applejack is okay with letting her go, if only if she helps out later down the line. But, she's very displeased with Goldie Delicious, causing her sister to run off and not help out with the initial farming. So while Applejack and Big Mac set about getting all the apples, Apple Bloom starts setting up various traps. Applejack also noticed that Goldie Delicious isn't really going to be too much of a real help for them here, so a lot of them will have to start pulling a little bit of double duty. And while she doesn't want to crush Apple Bloom's dreams and ideals and all that, she still would like Apple Bloom to help out because this is a big undertaking. And once the next morning comes, Apple Bloom sets out to find out if her traps were activated. But Applejack is still very much against Goldie filling Apple Bloom's head with these, nonsense basically in terms of what she sees. But when Apple Bloom brings everyone out to this kind of sighting that she saw, this kind of trackings, which, Goldie Delicious says is from the Great Seedling, both, Goldie Delicious and Granny Smith say that, this could only possibly be from the Great Seedling. But Applejack refused this, is thinking that maybe Goldie Delicious or even Granny Smith or even Big Mac had something to do with this. But Goldie simply believes that Applejack just needs to believe in the impossible. But, Applejack sits Apple Bloom down and says, listen, we really need help with this harvest. So you can do your trapping today, but tomorrow you gotta help us out. And Apple Bloom agrees to this for the most part, hoping that Applejack will actually help her out in the pursuit of getting the great seedling. And while the rivalry, the clashing of ideals between Applejack and Goldie Delicious rages on, Granny Smith says that not too long ago, Applejack also was into the myth of the Great Seedling. She went about setting up traps and all that while, she was supposed to be helping out with the great harvest. However, she ended up falling into one of her own traps, missing out on the harvest for that day altogether, not being there for her parents and all that. And, because of the, not just the embarrassment, but because she missed out on everything, she felt bad and decided from there on out she was going to help out with the confluence and harvesting and all that, and would put away her childish things. And honestly, I don't really care for the fact that Granny Smith just laughs at Applejack and all that. Yeah, I mean, it was probably pretty funny for the time, but honestly, never laugh at a little kid's determination and beliefs and all that. That kind of hardens them to a certain degree, and that's what caused Applejack to close herself off to these, childish thoughts and feelings. She didn't embrace it, she just puts it away and, demeans it to a certain degree. Although Applejack does a pretty good job of just trying to lift her sister up rather more than anything else. And as Apple Bloom, talks to Applejack and sympathizes with her, she says that, hey, listen, if you help me out, we might actually manage to capture the Great Seed. So while Apple Bloom sets about setting up traps, Applejack in the background continues to try to get the harvest underway. But as time goes on, they actually start to have a little bit of fun into the wee night. And honestly, they really start to bond over it. And even as the night comes to a close, Applejack and Apple Bloom, continue to say, hey, we'll keep helping each other out, helping out with the harvest, helping out with the traps, and, we'll go as far as we possibly can no matter what. However, the next morning, they once again see more of the patterns. It's this time on an even grander scale, with all of, and once everyone else comes out, they're just like, oh man, the Great Seedling is really up to some mischief this time around. And Apple Bloom reports back that all the traps have been set off, and Applejack is fully into it now. She's fully in the belief that the Great Seedling is out there doing its thing. And, while the old ladies confront her about that, she feels that all of this is just too much overwhelming proof of the Great Seedling's existence. So Applejack is fully willing to just kind of give up on the harvest and set up traps all throughout the rest of the harvest time. And while Apple Bloom is just like, well, didn't you say this was just some old fool's tale that for little kids to enjoy the harvest? Applejack is just like, yeah, we curve whatever I said. We're all about finding the Great Seedling now. And they basically just shunt off all of the responsibility to Big Mac, the poor guy, who's incredibly tired. But after a certain point, Mac notices that some of the trees have actually been already harvested, which he questions. And even Applejack doesn't have any answers towards this. But Goldie Delicious says that's the machinations of the Great Seedling. That's his mischief in play. And while Big Mac rolls his eyes at this, but Applejack is even more determined now, and they says that they will stay up through the night in order to try to capture the Great Seedling. So they do their best to stay up as long as they can, but naturally they fall asleep, only to be awoken by the great something rustling in the brush, something that seems to be almost harvesting the apples. And we see this figure in the distance roaming around, and it ends up sneaking up behind Apple Bloom and Applejack and basically chasing them all the way back to the barn. However, as it starts to approach them and get closer, it's revealed to be a sleepwalking Big Mac this entire time. And Once he falls into a trap, everyone has a little bit of a good laugh about the whole situation. Apparently, Big Mac has been harvesting in his sleep, and thanks to that, they actually completed the Confluence harvest because of all this. And while Apple Bloom is kind of disappointed she wasn't able to actually find the Great Seedling before she got too old to believe in it, Applejack says, "Hey, listen, you should never get too old for just believing in the more childish things." Having kind of reflected on how much fun they had during the hunt for the Great Seedling. And Applejack kind of learned the lesson of just opening herself up to the fun of things from her childhood. And as Goldie Delicious decides to depart, she notices a lineup of carrots. Carrots which Big Mac did not in fact harvest, showing that the Great Seedling might actually very well be out there still. And thus, Apple Bloom and Applejack go on the hunt once again for the Great Seedling. A very fun, cute episode. It was very nice to just see Applejack and Apple Bloom bond, because honestly, that's the biggest part of their character. It's unfortunate because Apple Bloom really shines on her own, but Applejack not so much, not all the time. But when it comes to those episodes with her and her sister, they're fantastic. They're always fun, they're always nice, they're always sweet, and they have a great message as well. And honestly, it's disappointing that we never got confirmation of the Great Seed, but this is also a reflection, like how I said about the Santa Claus parallel. Just never dash a child's belief. And it's not wrong to continue to believe in certain things, as long as it brings you happiness and as long as it brings you closer to those you care for. What's the harm in something like that? Definitely a fun, nice episode. But hey, tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. How did you feel about this episode? How did you feel about Applejack slowly coming around? How did you relate to that? Or did you not find it relatable at all? And how did you feel about Apple Bloom's more childish mentality here? And what did you think about our Great Seedling Big Mac and his sleepwalking tendencies apparently? Tell me everything in the comment section below. If you liked this video, leave me a like. If you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike and tell me what I did wrong in the comment section below. Subscribe and hit the bell icon, that way you never miss out on a My Little Pony episode review. And if you want to find me on social media, just Google Duuz-Diz-Din. I'm everywhere, for better or for worse. And until the next video, just remember that it's not wrong to have a belief, especially a belief in you having fun with your family and friends and just enjoying some time together, because that's what it's all about. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, and I'm going to bed. Bye-bye.